The US House of Representatives, where Republicans hold a narrow majority, has passed Donald Trump's new government budget proposal, which he's proudly calling the Big Beautiful Bill. It's a return to the hard right priorities of his first term: huge tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations and big cuts to welfare programs. The 2017 tax giveaways are to be extended, and on top of that, Medicaid and food aid are in the firing line again. Renewable energy subsidies axed. It's drill, baby, drill all over again. Trump wants to cut $163 billion in federal spending. Non-defense areas would be slashed by over 22%, taking us back to 2017 levels, while the military gets a 13% boost. And Homeland Security spending soars by a staggering 65%. This is to ramp up the assault on so-called illegal immigration. This is actually a budget that cuts public services to the bone while shoveling money into arms and security. But the cuts to Medicaid are particularly cruel. The US is still the only major economy without universal health coverage. Even though it spends $4.5 trillion a year on healthcare, Medicaid is a critical safety net. It helps nearly half of all Americans who would otherwise fall below the poverty line. Gutting this program doesn't just hit the poorest, it devastates working class families living paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, the tax cuts disproportionately benefit the wealthy. According to the Yale Budget Lab, the poorest fifth of households will see their after-tax incomes fall by 5%, while the next poorest group sees a 1.4% drop. In contrast, the richest fifth will gain 2.5%. That's before factoring in the drop in household income, already triggered by Trump's tariffs, which have cut the median income by another 2.8%. And these numbers may even understate the full damage, especially when you consider student loan repayment cuts being lined up in the House Education and Workforce Committee. This budget explodes the myth that Trump's protectionism marks a real break from the neoliberal past. His trade policies may differ, but domestically this is neoliberalism on steroids. More wealth for the rich, more power for big business, and deeper cuts for everyone else. It's an agenda that feeds inequality, already grotesque after 40 years of Reaganomics, Clintonism, Bush tax cuts, and Obama bailouts. And if you think Trump's budget hawks are serious about balancing the books, think again. The Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget estimates that Trump's plans will blow up the national debt by at least $3.3 trillion over the next decade, pushing the debt to GDP ratio to a record 125%. That's well above the 117% projected under current law. The annual deficit would balloon to 6.9% of GDP by 2034. Well, so much for fiscal responsibility, but don't expect Trump or his advisors to admit it. They claim the budget will pay for itself through higher growth thanks to deregulation and tax cuts. But it's the same trickle-down nonsense that's been repeatedly disproven for decades. Oh, and as for tariffs, Trump's team argues they'll bring in new revenue to offset the tax cuts. But the Congressional Budget Office puts the extra income from tariffs at just $245 billion. That's a drop in the ocean compared to the $1.8 trillion budget deficit and the $5.2 trillion total tax receipts projected for this year. Trump's MAGA camp is also pushing for the Federal Reserve to deregulate banks again, scrapping leverage limits so they can buy more US government debt. Have they already forgotten the banking crisis of March 2023 when regional banks collapsed after betting heavily on government bonds that suddenly lost value? Some commentators are warning that Trump could be heading for his own Liz Truss moment. Remember Truss, the UK Prime Minister who lasted just 47 days after a tax-slashing, debt-raising budget caused a market panic, a bond sell-off, and a crash in the British pound. But a full-scale bond meltdown in the US is far less likely. Unlike the UK, the US doesn't rely on the kindness of strangers to finance its deficits. The US dollar is still the global reserve currency, and for now, that gives Washington much more leeway. But Trump's erratic tariff policies and fiscal chaos have rattled the markets. He's even threatening to slap a 50% tariff on all European imports this week unless a trade deal is struck. That sparked fears of a recession, or worse, stagflation. In the first quarter of 2025, US GDP fell 0.3%. It's not a definite downturn yet, but the warning lights are there. One key recession signal, the SARM rule, tracks increases in the unemployment rate. It's not flashing red just yet, sitting at around 0.3%, but a few more months of 0.1 percentage point increases could tip the scale. However, unemployment is a lagging indicator. What really matters is profit. From a Marxist perspective, profit drives investment, and that drives employment. Corporate profits are still rising, but demand is softening, exports are down, and tariffs are raising production costs. Interest rates are high, credit is tight, and companies are already planning to cut back. Citibank projects corporate earnings growth will fall to just 1% this year, and a sudden halt to Chinese imports could hit 7% of corporate investment according to the Fed. Worse still, instead of investing in productive capacity, US corporations are spending $500 billion in just 3 months on share buybacks to pump up stock prices. It tells you everything about who this system is designed to serve. And American households aren't fooled over this. Consumer confidence is at its second lowest level ever. The cost of living is outpacing wages. According to the Ludwig Institute for Shared Economic Prosperity, 60% of US households can't afford a minimal standard of living. The official unemployment rate may be 4.2%, but the real figure is closer to 24% when you include underemployment and poverty wage work. To afford basic needs, a family needs $67,000 a year, but the average household income is just $38,000. Healthcare and housing costs are surging while the cost of college has gone through the roof. Median earnings for the bottom 60% have actually dropped 4% since 2001. And this is what they get now: Trump's big, beautiful budget, brutal cuts for the poor, and massive handouts for the rich. To read the full article with all the charts and sources, head over to the blog of Michael Roberts. You'll find the original piece in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We also release these videos in an audio-only format on Spotify. Again, link in the description if you want to listen to it over there. And make sure to visit our website at www.lefthorizons.com for more articles. Subscribe to the newsletter. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.